Jay here from Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, we're live. We're in the studio, so get involved in the chat and the comments. And make sure you are hitting like, share, and subscribe, of course. Got loads of stories to get through. We're going to be talking about Angel Gomes. He's in the England squad, Lee Carsley's England squad, for the games against Ireland and Finland. Could Angel Gomes come back to Manchester United? We're going to be getting into that. We're also going to be talking a little bit about a new wonder kid who's burst onto the scene. We'll be getting into that one. So it's from one wonder kid to another. Plus a little bit about Erik ten Hag, of course, because there's always some Erik ten Hag stories doing the rounds. So make sure you are getting involved and letting us know what you think about all these stories. Already people in the chat. See Adam Hasler, Jacoya Trott, Mick Holohan, Matthew Coward. Matthew Coward says the video of Angel Gomes asking a spiritual healer to cure him is peak United. Yeah, that was when he was a kid, that one, when he was a bit younger. Punch Paint says good morning from Boston. Bill Baggio TMUA says morning people. Tactical statistician says Bole Gomes. Kevin Aitchison says morning Jay, glory. Right, let's talk about Angel Gomes then, because he's in the England squad. And he's given a press conference, he spoke very well, and he spoke about, as you can see there, has been on a difficult journey since leaving Manchester United to better myself as a player and a person. Leo midfield Gomes is one of 4 uncapped players called up by interim England manager Lee Carsley for the Nations League games away to the Republic of Ireland and Finland. It goes on to say there, he joined United in 2006, age 6. I didn't realise he was that young when he joined, and progressed through the academy to the first team, but only gained 46 minutes of Premier League experience before joining Lille in 2020. I think, if I'm right, that Premier League experience, he was like one of the youngest players ever to play in the Premier League. I think he might have even been the youngest player ever to play in the Premier League when he did play in the Premier League for Manchester United. Now, I used to love Angel Gomes. He was a bit, when he was at Manchester United as in the academy and the brief sort of chances he got, he was a bit more of an attacking midfielder. Now he's a little bit deeper, innit? He's more of a deep line midfielder. You see it here, it says here, my tweet at the time when he left, rated Gomes and thought this could be a huge season for him, but that hasn't materialised. Ollie isn't scared of giving youngsters a chance. Gomes just hasn't really taken his, and if he doesn't want to fight for his place, I wish him well. Some people may argue that it wasn't a case of he didn't want to fight for his place. It was a case of, like, the club weren't willing to make him feel wanted. Others may say he could have stayed. I thought at the time he could have stayed and fought for his place. I think there might have been some sort of questions about physically, was he ready yet? Was he quite there? Because he was always a slight, small player, and it might have taken him a few years. In an ideal world, we would have kept him. I would have liked to have seen him kept him. We had that crop of youngsters that came through. I think it was Sahith Chong, it was Angel Gomes. I think Mason Green was a little bit younger, but there was a lot of hype around him. There was one or two others as well, but I remember sort of talking about Angel Gomes as a really exciting young player, and I like the way he played, very neat and tidy, technically very good. Didn't really get much of an opportunity. He's obviously gone out since he left Manchester United and done really well, but it hasn't been an overnight thing. He went to Lille. I think he went up to Bole Vista, didn't he, on loan as well. He went to Lille, and he's been there for, 5 seasons now? Or 4 and a bit seasons. So it's not like he left United and straight away he's in the England squad. It has been a journey. Has he spoken about there? The question is now, looking at the player, look at the type of player he is he someone that United could benefit from having in our team? Yes. Would he come back to Manchester United? Well, he's been asked about coming back to the Premier League. So he says here, so if something was to come up that didn't make sense, you never know in football. I mean, he's been a bit like, he said also in that quote, I think he said that he has had the opportunity to come back to the Premier League. He's out of contract at the end of this season. Now, could he come back to United? Absolutely, I think he could. Will he? We'll have to wait and see. Would United try and get him back? He is a player that obviously knows the club. He was at the club for, 14 years? So he's been at the club a long time. That's longer than most players have been. I think he suits United, what United are trying to do. He's a different type of player, I do feel, than the one that left. Not just in terms of physicality and what, he's grown up a little bit, but also I think when he was at the club the first time round, some people likened him to a young Paul Scholes. Others likened him to just a more attacking, almost like a Juan Mata type player. Some people were touting him as. I never quite bought into that idea though. Now he seems to be a bit more of a sort of deeper midfielder than he was in those days. He was a bit more of a 10 back then. Now he's a bit more of an 8 or a 6. Let me know what you think about this. Angel Gomes, would you like to see him back at Manchester United? You see here as well, he said about the offers as he received offers to return to the Premier League. I have, but I believe everything will happen naturally. and in its own time, and I am really chilled. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he's obviously done really well at Lille, got himself into the England squad. He's well respected and well sort of thought of across the board, isn't he? If you ever see like commentators and journalists and pundits talking about Angel Gomes, he's a player that everyone sort of waxes lyrical about. He had a bad injury the other day, didn't he? And everyone was sort of, worried about him, but obviously came through that and he's fine. But could he come back to Manchester United and do a job? That is the question. Duncan AI says, ridiculous that we ever let him go. Loved him and his game time was an insult. Would be perfect rotation with Mainu now. Contract expires next season. Yeah, he is out of contract. So, could we get him in? Maybe. I don't know. Santa Nut says, we love signing small players anyway. Lol. Saif says, very intrigued to see how Mainu and Gomes play together. Doyley says, morning Jay. Love to have him back. Technically a good player. Yeah, 100%. Jacobin says, I can see him being like a David Silva type if Pep was coaching him. Maybe. He's such a sort of talented player who can operate in so many different roles in that midfield. You could almost try and sort of see him, as a 10, as an 8, as a 6. He's one of those players you can see him fulfilling all these roles. I think he's played in all these different roles during his time as a kid and obviously as an adult. And I'm very curious to see how he gets on for England. I wouldn't base any sort of transfer policy or trying to sign him based on what he does for England against Ireland. I think you have to look at what he's been doing for Lille. And I think his numbers for Lille are very good. I think he's in the top sort of, at the very, very top across Europe for sort of ball retention and things like that, where you want to keep holding the ball, you want to progress the ball. The type of football that Manchester United want to play, Angel Gomes would seem to fit that. It's just a big if he'd come back in it. Would the club pursue him and would he come back? If he is out of contracts in the summer and he doesn't sign a new deal, then you could get him on a free, perhaps. Would Lille try and get him to sign a new deal before then? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it does feel like now would be the right time for Angel Gomes to make a move. He's been at Lille for 4 years, progressing nicely, getting into that England squad. Would it be time for him to move on? I think it probably would. What is he now, 24? Where do the years go? Seriously, 24 years old. Angel Gomes is 24. We're all getting on, aren't we? So let me know what you think. Would you want to see this happen? Do you think it can happen? Craig Thompson says, he's the type of player we need. Deep line playmaking out. Plays more like Carrick now, but with more flair. 2K Universe Elite says, you guys had Jadon Sancho. He was good, but you lots ruined him. Linville B says, could sign him by Jan. Graham Allen says, I've watched him a couple of times and I'm surprised he's been picked. Very talented, but not that physical. Let's see how he does for England. I think the game's changing a little bit. You're getting more midfielders who aren't that physical now. It doesn't seem physicality in midfield used to be a given, right? Back in the day, even sort of relatively recently, you had to be physical to be in midfield. But you look at certain players, are they very physical? I don't like certain midfielders. You wouldn't say that physicality is their best trait. Is Frankie de Jong physical? I mean, he's a tough lad. I don't know. I feel like we're sort of entering this new era when it comes to midfielders. Let me know what you think. Am I just getting ahead of myself and sort of, in my day, everything was physical and now it's not? Or do you feel like there has been a little bit of a sea change? Nico says, if we buy him, make sure we pay a world record fee. That's what we do before the free exit. Yeah, let's buy him for like 90 million quid and then sign him on a 4-year deal, whatever. Let that deal run out, and then he can go back to Lille for free. Ray says he should come replace Bruno. Don't know about that. Ant L says, no doubt he's a great player, but is he a player that moves us closer to challenging for titles? All valid questions. I think it's a debate that can rage on. I think if he has a bit of a worldie for England in either of those two games or both of them, this is going to gather momentum. And it won't just be Manchester United he's being linked with, because I think midfielders are in short supply. And if he has a good game for England, the hype is going to be sort of almost unbearable, and he's going to be linked with a lot of other players as well, because I think there's a lot of other teams, because I think there's a lot of teams in the market for midfielders. So one to keep an eye on. Obviously the Manchester United connection, we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think anyone would be complaining if Angel Gomes ended up back at United, but I think we might at the minute be getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about Ten Hag. Right, we're going to have more Ten Hag stories later. Jamie Jackson's just done a piece in The Guardian about Ten Hag. We're going to have Jamie Jackson in the studio later on today, so we'll be getting into that. This is from the Mirror. Eric Ten Hag returns to manage his former club amid Man United struggles. The beleaguered Manchester United boss has returned to Holland during the international break after agreeing to take charge of a team of former Utrecht players for a testimonial. So he's going for a testimonial. I think is it. There you go. Mark van der. I can't read that. Sorry, what does that say? Marel. So if you take the blue bit off, yeah. Mark van der Marel on Sunday. The only reason you flagged this up, obviously, it's doing the rounds in the papers, so you mention it. I just hope no one gets stupid with this. Like, if he loses this game, I don't want to see headlines. Ten Hag's lost again. Ten Hag under more pressure because it's a friendly, it's a testimonial. It's completely and utterly meaningless. You might even have, one of those testimonials where you have like ball boys taking throw-ins and things like that. Some of the stuff that goes on in testimonials. So let's not get carried away. But it is a story about Erik ten Hag, so we're going to mention it. I think the whole point of this is there's just a lot of noise around Erik ten Hag at the minute, isn't there? Jamie Jackson's piece is a little more in depth than this. This is just a bit of fluff. So we'll get into that with him later on. So make sure you are subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on any of that. We're going to hear lots and lots of stories about Erik ten Hag, about the pressure he's under. And that's going to continue until he starts consistently winning football matches. That is the nature of the beast at any club nowadays, especially Manchester United, especially Manchester United when you are under pressure because of what happened last season. Just on that front, can we go on the Andy O'Boyle story first, please? Because there's been a lot of changes at Manchester United other than the manager. It feels like everything has changed other than the Manchester United manager. The coaching staff has almost completely, not completely, but there's been a lot of changes when we've seen the likes of René Hake, Ruud van Nistelrooy, of course, coming in. I think Mitchell van der Gaar's gone, Steve McLaren's gone, Benny McCarthy's gone. Loads of changes on the coaching staff above the manager. You've seen Dan Ashworth come in. You've seen Jason Wilcox come in. You've seen Omar Barada come in as a new CEO. It's been a massive change at Manchester United, and that's kind of carried on again. There's a new story here in the Manchester Evening News. It says Andy O'Boyle will leave his role as Deputy Football Director at United next week after Dan Ashworth and Sir Dave Brailsford confirmed his departure. O'Boyle is leaving United after just 2 years in his role, and although he played a key part in the transition to a new football structure under Ineos, his responsibilities are now overlapping with Sporting Director Ashworth and Technical Director Jason Wilcox. One of his final acts at United was to play a major part in drawing up plans for the 50 million redevelopment at Carrington, with work now underway to transform the club's training ground and deliver improved facilities in time for the 25-26 season. So everything is changing at United other than the manager. The playing staff, the players, there's been a big change there. We brought in a load of new players and got rid of a load of players. The coaching staff has changed, and above Erik ten Hag has changed. Erik ten Hag is still there though. But that's why I think one of the reasons you get a lot of noise is not just because of the results, but also because everyone's looking at it going, well, everything's changed by the manager. So the next thing they can change is the manager. So I get why there is a lot of noise around Erik ten Hag, but like I said, and I keep saying, if he wins football matches, that noise should end. Duncan AI said about Angel Gomes, I'd take him in Jan for 5 million to beat the competition. Punch Paint says, up the Paddock, Jay's an absolute legend. We're all lucky to have this channel, to have each other. Very positive, I love all that. Ruby Webster says, let's be real, football nowadays is no contact sport. Don't fool yourself. I think that's a little nod as well to about the physicality of Angel Gomes. Adam Plummer says, morning from Cleveland, Ohio. Keep up the good work, Jay. Love the head sheen. Thank you. Buffed up special. Elite Baller says Punch Paint is the most optimistic fan on YouTube. Do you know what? You need a bit of optimism, don't you? Here's one for you. Heram Navekar says we made a mistake by not signing Sabitzer permanently. Very unlucky, Marcel Sabitzer, with that injury. I was impressed with him, but then he got injured, didn't he? And it was like that was the end of that. And I just feel he was very unlucky because I think he'd stayed fit. There might have been a conversation there to be had with Bayern Munich because he ended up going to Dortmund, didn't he? So, yeah, I liked Sabitzer, but we didn't really see much of him, did we? Because of the injury he got. And I think when you get injured on a loan move and you miss like half your loan move or whatever it was, that sort of just scuppers the idea of you being made permanent, doesn't it? Because it's like, well, we got him in on a loan, he was injured. So we're not going to make that a permanent deal. Please hit that like button, please, people. Let's talk about this new kid, Louis Bradbury. I think he's scored a 22-minute hat-trick for Wales. So, yeah, they beat, is it 5-0? They beat Gibraltar, 5-0, with Bradbury netting a first-half hat-trick to put his side 3-0 up. One to keep an eye on there. Obviously, banging in the goals at a very, younger level, but we love to see it. Youngster there doing well for his country. Let's see what happens. Just an interesting story there. I want to keep an eye on. Remember, one of those where people go, remember I was talking about Louis Bradbury before any of you lot had heard of him. Well, there you go. We were talking about him now. Let's talk about Anthony. as well. Another story about Antony. We've had these stories about Antony coming thick and fast over the last few days. Fenerbahce, the Turkish league, still have their transfer window open. Him and Casemiro have both been linked with moves to Turkey. See here from Fabrizio Romano. I think he tweeted this morning. No truth in Antony Fenerbahce links from Turkey, as he's fully committed to Man United project. No intention to leave the club this summer, as always stated by those close to the Brazilian winger. Look, we debated this, me and Joe, last night. I'm not Antony's biggest fan. I've made that clear. I don't want to keep repeating myself. It probably doesn't make sense that he would go now after our transfer window shut, when we can't bring anyone else in, and we haven't got loads of wingers. We've got some, but we haven't got loads. I mean, regardless of what I feel about him, the manager rated him enough to buy him, and to spend a lot of money, or to sanction a big spend on him. So it would seem a little bit odd if you're going to let him go without being able to replace him for this season, especially when you've got so many games coming up thick and fast. You've got the Europa League, you've got the Carabao Cup. Even if you don't rate Antony that much, you could still play him in the games against the likes of Barnsley and FC 20 or whatever. So I'd be surprised if he did go, and according to Fabrizio Romano, he ain't going to go. Plus, he's on big dough, isn't he, Antony? So he's probably not going to get that money if he went to Fenerbahce. So that's got to come into it as well. So let me know what you think about that. People saying, Graham Allen says, Jay, you love Antony, just admit it. You've got me. I do. I admit it. What is it? You hurt the ones you love. Let's talk about Anthony Martial. Again, Fabrizio Romano. Flamengo make contact with former United striker Martial among main options to replace Pedro. Following Pedro's ACL injury, Martial has been approached while he's considering several options for his future. Martial not having a club is a bit weird to me, because I think, how old is he now? 28? I mean, I know he's not exactly had the best few seasons, but a 28-year-old striker who has got quite a lot of goals under his belt and also has scored some great goals, you'd think he'd be able to get a club. You'd think someone would have him. I think someone would go, yeah, but maybe he's been a little bit fussy. Maybe he's been a bit like De Gea. There was talk that De Gea just didn't want to go to anyone, and he had obviously a year out, didn't he? And then he went, was it Fiorentina he's gone to? So maybe there's been a bit of that with Anthony Martial, where he's had a few offers, but he wants to sort of go to a decent club or a decent standard, which I understand, I get. I don't think you should necessarily just go anywhere, but you think he'd go somewhere. I mean, it's different for a striker as well. I think as a goalkeeper, I think De Gea's, what is he, 30, 31? I mean, a goalkeeper can play until he's 40. That can happen. For a striker, especially strikers that had as many injuries as Anthony Martial, how long is he going to play for? Till he's 31, 32 maybe? I don't see Anthony Martial being the type of player who plays into his mid-30s, because of the amount of injuries he has and also the style he is as well. He's not that kind of, some strikers are sort of built for that sort of longevity. You can see the way they are. You can think, okay, he could play until his mid-30s. Anthony Martial's a little bit different, a little bit... he's not short, he's actually taller than I thought, but a little bit stockier, and I just wonder, with the injuries, would he be playing that long? No, so I thought he would have got a club by now. Obviously, he hasn't. Maybe he could end up finding one if someone comes in for him. Flamenco might be a move for him if he wants to go to Brazil. We'll have to wait and see. Who knows? One to keep an eye on. I know you might go, he's not a United player anymore, who cares, but it's always slightly intriguing, isn't it, what happens to the ex-players? I think so. Anyway, Ross Murphy says, too many injuries perhaps, Jay. Yep, I agree. CTB says, it's mad to think Martial is on the dole collecting job seekers allowance. We've all been there, haven't we? Akash K says, Martial's career is over, in my opinion. It's so sad, isn't it, really? Whether you rate Martial or not, this is a player, when he came in, he was like a golden ball winner or something. He's like one of the most spoke about youngsters on the planet. When we got him from Monaco, there was a reason he cost so much. You look at that debut, you look at that first season, you look at that goal in the semi-final against Everton, you look at that hat-trick against Sheffield United, you look at the 20-odd goals he got in that season under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you look at the goals against Manchester City, and now you look at it, and he's approaching what should be the peak, or at the peak of his career, in terms of his age, and he ain't got a club. Yep. Kevin Aitchen says, we'll always have his goal against the Scousers. I agree. Let's hit that like button, please, people. Let's get to 200 likes. Surely we can get there. We're almost there. Smash a like if you're watching. George Jones says, lol, Martial. Jimmer Kong Giller says, Jay for centre-forward on a 2-year deal. My days of playing as a centre-forward long gone. I think they ended when I was about 12. Talk a little bit about Erik ten Hag here now. Alan Shear has been giving his comments. Now, there's a lot of noise around Erik ten Hag, and I think you can see it here. Alan Shearer was just sort of saying the next 2 games are massive for Erik ten Hag's future. Nothing that original or particularly insightful here. The only reason I flag it up because it's being said by a lot of people. We could have picked anyone out other than Alan Shearer. There's a lot of people saying it, that these next few games for Erik ten Hag are crucial. I think the Southampton game for Erik ten Hag is crucial because I hate to say must win. Because you say must win and you think, well, they're not all must win, are they? Like every time you say it, and also if you lose, does that mean you get sacked? With the Southampton game, I think he's in serious trouble if you lose that game. The 19th in the league, second bottom. I think they've lost every single game. My brother-in-law is a Saints fan. I was chatting to him the other day, and he basically says they've been shambles this season. Russell Martin, I think, is the manager there. He likes to play out from the back, and it just ain't working for them. United go there, and if you lose that game, people are going to go, you're losing to a team that's second bottom of the table, that can't get a point anywhere else, and has just been promoted. It doesn't look great, does it? So I just feel like that is a game you have to win. Because then after that, you've got Barnsley in the Carabao. That's not going to... If you lose against Southampton, beating Barnsley ain't going to give you a reprieve. Then you've got Palace away, a tougher one. Southampton away is tough. Palace away... Say Southampton away is tough. Every way fixture's tough to a certain degree. Southampton away is one you should be winning. Palace away is tough. Palace are a good side. I know they've struggled a little bit this season, but you look at what happened there last season. You look at some of the players they've got. They're a re-handful, aren't they, Crystal Palace? And just looking at the league, then you've got Spurs at home. I think you need to be going into that Spurs game on a decent run. You've got FC20 as well in the middle of all that. It's a testing time for the manager. We're going to be getting into that a little bit later on. We're going to be chatting to Jamie Jackson. Jamie Jackson has done a bit of an exclusive look at Erik ten Hag there and about his future and what's going to happen with his future. He's going to be in the studio later on today, Jamie Jackson, so we will be getting into all that. We'll quiz him about Erik ten Hag. We'll quiz him about what he's heard and what's going to go on there and just what he feels will happen with the Manchester United manager. Thank you to everyone who's got involved in the chat and the comments. Santa Knot says, this is definitely a Manchester World story. He was watching last night. Manchester World. I've seen a few stories on Manchester World. I don't know if they're new or if I've just not noticed them before. You think I would have noticed them considering the amount of stories we cover. But I mentioned this last night. Manchester World have suddenly popped up with these stories, and apparently they're part of like the Reach. Is it Reach PLC, the chain that owns a lot of newspapers? So maybe I was being a little bit disparaging or dismissive of them when I was like, "Ooh, a Manchester World. I've never heard of him." So yeah, they could be the new kids on the block. Siren says Gomes was 16 years, 263 days old on his debut. Very young indeed. 8 years ago is that? It can't be. How old is he now? It must be. Yeah, because he's 24 in it. So it must have been like 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah, crikey, eh? 2017 his debut, producer Ben just told me. Right, well, there you go then. In fact, oh, hang on a minute. That's when he signed, right? So that wasn't his debut. Thanks for shouting out. Let me have... Yeah, it was his debut as well. It was May 2017. Yeah, and he was the youngest player to represent Manchester United since Duncan Edwards in 1953. And before you ask, no, I don't remember that because I didn't go. Jesus Christ says our fans have descended into Aston fan levels of head loss. We knew it would be 3 to 5 season before anything positive. Glenn F says, cheers to you, Jay, bro. Yep, Angel Gomes is always injured, sadly, it says user 007. We'll see what happens with Gomes. We'll see what happens with Erik ten Hag. We'll see what happens with Louis Bradbury. We'll see what happens with all those players that we've mentioned. We'll even see what happens with Andy Martial. Why not? Make sure you are subscribing to the channel. I'm going to be back later on with a chat with Jamie Jackson. I've been Jay Moy. This has been The Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.